Today I'm very excited to share with you the world's fastest Sio Bak recipe. You could be watching this video on the MRT or during your lunch break, and after work tonight you can go and pick up a slab of pork belly like this and turn it into Sio Bak with a thin crust, juicy meat within 1 hour. And you don't have to boil the pork, marinate it overnight, put a salt crust on it. And we'll be doing this roast pork in the brand new instant Omni Pro oven toaster and air fryer. Over the last few months, I've been playing with this toaster oven. As you know, I already have a very good Sio Bak recipe online, but that one, it requires you to boil the pork, marinate it overnight, and then in the oven it takes 1.5 hours. So this recipe is quick, it's easy, and anybody will be able to do it. What we need is 1 kilogram of pork belly. The first thing is to prick it all over with this special equipment. I know a lot of you don't have this, but if you're living in Singapore, these are actually very easy to find nowadays, the shops that sells all the kitchen equipment. Right now, I'm going to poke as many holes as I can on the surface. This step is what makes the Chinese Sio Bak different from the Western style roast pork with crispy rind. Because by poking the skin, you reduce the size of the bubbles when the skin blisters, so that the final pork rind is thinner and more crispy. So the first hack I'm going to show you is that we're going to use baking soda. So 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, 1 teaspoon of salt. You're going to rub all over the skin. The bicarbonate of soda will denature the pork rind and make it easier to blister. The salt is going to pull out some of the water. So I reduce this marinade time to 15 minutes instead of the overnight. I find that it actually works. I'm just putting a little bit of water to wet the salt and the bicarb, and that will get the reaction going. Now what we're going to do is to leave this in the fridge for 15 minutes, and in the meantime we're going to prepare our marinade for the pork. All you really need is salt. This is the most important ingredient because salt will make the roast pork taste much better. But I like my flavors, right? So I'm going to add some white pepper. And to make it even nicer, I'm going to use some garlic powder. Now if you don't have garlic powder, just take 3 cloves of garlic and just mash it up. Next, we're going to put some sugar. Sugar will help balance it out. MSG. You can don't put if you're sensitive to MSG, but let me just say that there is no medical evidence that MSG actually causes any harm to the human body. Now we're going to add in a little bit of Chinese wine. The Chinese wine will help to just dissolve everything. And finally, we got some sesame oil. That's our marinade for the pork. That's ready. So today we're going to be air frying our Sio Bak, and we're going to put it on this air fryer basket. Why I never wanted to buy an air fryer? Because it is this kind of size, which is very limited. With this oven, you actually have this amount of space to cook your things, which is why you can cook a nice long piece of Sio Bak. And with this instant Omni Pro Air Fryer oven, the hot air actually comes from the top down. So that's very useful for Sio Bak. First thing we're going to do is we're going to line this bottom tray with some aluminium. And then the air fryer basket goes on top. So what we're going to do is just roll this up into like a cylinder. I think this is convenient because all of you will have aluminum foil. So I'm just making it into something like this kind of shape. It's because if the pork belly sags, then the part that is sagging will not blister nicely. So we're going to lift up the middle of the pork belly. We're at the 15-minute mark. The salt has already pulled the liquid out from the skin. So we're going to remove all that excess liquid and all the excess salt and bicarbonate. Make sure it's dry. We're going to add some white vinegar to the pork skin. It's just basically to neutralize the baking soda. Because this is an acid, baking soda is a base. So when you add acid to base, what's going to happen? Bubbles. This step is very good because you can actually see the bubbles, and then you can get rid of all the baking soda, or else you might have a bit of the soapy kind of taste, So just make sure we dry the pork nicely, yes. We're just going to add some extra salt on top of the skin once you dry it all up, because the salt will continue to dry up the moisture from the skin. It doesn't require an overnight marinade because we're going to slice the pork into thinner strips. By slicing the pork, we are going to ensure that the pork can cook quickly and all the meat will be nicely seasoned. We're going to divide it into 3 strips. Just run your knife across the skin. And we're going to cut the pork all the way through except for this part, so that it's easier to handle the pork. So we want to get the marinade all evenly coating the meat section, not the skin. Wow, the marinade is so fragrant. You can smell that garlic and the sesame oil. Make sure you got enough marinade in between. And you don't really need to leave it for 1 hour or half an hour. It will work just as it is. So now we're going to skewer the pork. I'm going to use these stainless steel skewers. They're lovely. They're very cheap, only $1 plus each. You can get them online or at the specialty kitchen shops. But if you don't have these on hand, you can use those bamboo skewers they use for Japanese yakitori. These are easily available. And if you don't have these, then use some disposable chopsticks. They will work as well. I like these skewers. Make me look like Wolverine, you know? Okay, we're gonna skewer the pork like this. Okay, try to keep the levels, yeah? We're gonna put the pork over this. Gonna spray with a little bit of oil. You can see that I'm trying to place the pork nicely and ensuring that there's a half a centimeter gap in between the pork so that it will cook evenly. And then the other thing that you really need to take care is to make sure that the middle of the pork is nice and smooth. So now we're going to pop it into the oven. So this is how we set it. We're going to be using air fryer function. Then we press on the split cook. For the first stage, we're going to set it at 120 and that's going to be for 10 minutes. And then we're going to press the split cook again. And 232 is the maximum. And we are going to go for 20 minutes. It's all set. Let's start. So this split cook function is very useful. It just means that, you know, I don't have to come back after 10 minutes of air frying at 120, right? And then set it to 232. You can actually program it so that one follows the other. So it's quite a useful function there. It's 14 functions, so you can air fry, you can bake, you can roast, you can broil, you can toast your bread, and you can proof dough in it. And I feel that the size is actually quite good for those of you who don't have a lot of countertop space. It actually comes with a rotisserie. You can actually attach a rotisserie. Not a big chicken, those small chickens that we are used to. And it comes with a temperature probe as well, which you can attach to the side there. So you can measure the meat temperature while you're roasting to know when it's done. This air fryer oven will be your oven, your toaster oven, and your air fryer, all three equipment into one. When there's about 7 minutes left, what I like to do is to rotate the tray so that those parts that didn't get enough blistering can now blister. So in the end, we should have a nicely evenly blistered siobak. After you rotate, right, just look out for spots that are not really blistered. And what you should do is you can remove it and then use a pair of tongs. Try to lift up the pork and then move it around so that the parts that you think are not blistered properly, they get some chance to blister. Siobak is ready. Let's check it out. I've noticed that actually this side of it, because it's lower down, it wasn't blistered very well. Not to despair, what we're going to do now, we're just going to lift this up a little bit. We move this aluminum foil to that side so that it will get a little bit more time under the fryer. And then after that, it will be very nicely blistered. So another 3 minutes. All the tips and tricks, I Lego already. I'm showing you everything. With this recipe, I decided, okay, let's try to see how we can shorten all the steps. So I got rid of the boiling of the pork. And I'm telling you that salt crust, you can see you don't really need a salt crust. But you do need a good oven. And this oven is really nice because the hot air really comes down and blasts on the pork rind. I haven't tried this recipe in my conventional oven, but if you're going to try this recipe in a conventional oven, let us know whether it works. I think our siobak is ready. Beautiful. That's pretty good for less than 1 hour, yes? Let's remove the skewers. Okay, I know you want to cut into it straight away, but you do need to let it rest for maybe about 10 minutes, yeah? Time to slice into our meat. We just need to chop off the end. So another advantage of doing it this way, right? You don't have to cut this way. And all you need to do is to chop it like that. And you have beautiful roast pork. Ooh, you hear how crispy that is? Listen, That is crispy. Crispy rind, tender, juicy pork. World's fastest siobak recipe. I hope you agree. Several hacks, but I have to admit, it still cannot compare to my overnight one. because of the fact that with the overnight roast pork, I can actually roast it until it's really black on the top and then scrape off the top layer so that I can thin off the rind. It's even more crispy that way. But for 1 hour, you get a Sio Bak like this. I'm sure you agree. Something worth trying, right? So, if you're in the market for a new countertop oven, why don't you consider getting the instant Omni Pro toaster oven air fryer? Until next time, happy cooking and bye!